Hello, before this video starts, this is going to be a very unorganized video. I'm going to be yapping, I'm going to be sputtering. I'm deadass going to pause in the middle of the video sometimes and just have absolutely nothing to say. I'll be repeating myself a whole lot of times. So if you're willing to sit through all that, I warned you, so hopefully you enjoy the video if you're willing to sit through all that. Also, the gameplay and the recording itself, the voice recording, are perfectly timed. They originally are 12 minutes and 22 seconds, but I decided to go ahead and reduce the speed of the gameplay. If it still appears fast, that's because the game itself is just that fast. It's that fast paced. I want to play a different game besides JJS, since that's going to make for a different thumbnail. I still have those AI generated thumbnails, so hopefully it changes something. Anyways, hopefully you enjoy the video. Well, it's finals week, or finals weeks for some, including myself. And for some others, they've already finished. And for some others, in elementary school specifically, they probably just started ending school. I got a question for you, viewer. Would you consider school to be this utterly miserable, inconvenient hell in which your survival was tested every single day in every single way they could, in which left you exasperated every single day after school, wishing it did not exist? The answer to that is no, then you and I have a similarity. For most, it's going to be yes. In that case, you and I have one difference already. For me, I live in suburban New York, right? Getting into my background a bit more, again, I live in suburban New York. And specifically, Long Island. I don't live in the city. In fact, the only time I've ever went to the city was for subway rides. So I definitely do not live in the city. For me, all the schools I went to were well funded. The teachers there actually cared and still care. Principals are pretty chill. All my classmates, at least in terms of like the fact that they just happen to be the same people that attended the school as I did, were also pretty chill. And specifically this year, everything just came together so well. Because this video is going to be titled The 10th Grade Experience. I might decide on that later. It might be titled that. And so for that, I will talk about my 10th grade experience, but I will do the good old comparison, specifically to the 9th grade. This is not a formal comparison whatsoever, and this video in itself is not going to be very organized. It's just going to be me probably repeating myself a couple of times more, or me saying redundant things, me sputtering a whole lot. Be ready for that. This is not the most formal rant you've ever heard. Hopefully not. I'm just here to yap since I got nothing else to do. I got nothing else to do. So let's begin. So for 10th grade, I was getting into my teachers. All my teachers this year were really nice. Like, they all loved teaching. They all cared for teaching. They all were very, very chill. The only time they ever had to go out of their way to do something was when a student or a certain group of students were being crackheads, bro. Where these students were being utter hooligans, utter goddamn nuisances. Like, utter scoundrels be talking crazy in class, started shouting out loud. They have absolutely no home training, some of those kids. And I'm here to tell you right now, that's like the only thing that managed to get some teachers to talk. And even then, they weren't even that. Teachers didn't even say much, considering that rarely happened. If you're not in my history class this year, if you weren't in my history class this year, that is. Just to my teachers, though, they're all really, really nice. I turn in work. I genuinely woke up every morning wanting to finish the work, wanting to be in class, not wanting class as in wanting to be in school, but the teachers almost made me want to be in school because they were so great. And more into my teachers this year, they're all for particularly hard subjects like chemistry, algebra 2, probably Spanish 3 for some, psychology, and somehow health. I don't know how some people find health hard, but if the teacher's going out of their way to be a nuisance, maybe then, but not even with the subject material. And even when those hard classes were taken into consideration, all the teachers were really nice and actually knew how to teach their stuff, to the point where those classes were dead ass easy as hell. Like, I think I had greater difficulty in 7th grade than in 10th grade. I was not doing shit this year. I was slacking in terms of the amount of effort I was putting. Not slacking in terms of the work. I was slacking in how much effort and energy I put into the work, and it still looked good, and the work was good, and the teachers were just making it that easy. Now, on to the actual classmates. Again, I did mention that some students were just cosplaying as those with absolutely no home training. They were LARPing as those with no home training. Like, there were just some demons in some of my classrooms, bro. Some of my classes, specifically being Spanish and global history. And I kind of look right at myself out there in terms of what part of Long Island I'm from, since there are only so many classes called global history. And specifically since I'm in New York, I kind of ratted myself out a little bit. But it's all across New York, so you couldn't tell what school I came from. Only people that I do know in school that I have told about this channel will probably know what I'm talking. Probably they'll come into my comments or talking about you're from this school, or you're talking about this teacher, you're talking about this class. Back to the actual classmates though, all of them were nice. Most of them were 11th graders. Not most, half of them were 11th graders. Since I used to take accelerated classes from 8th and 9th grade. 8th and 9th grade I took accelerated classes which are like 1 year ahead. So, for example, in 8th grade I would normally take in Geometry 1. I would have taken Geometry 1. But in 8th grade I took Algebra 1 accelerated since I was a year ahead. I kept being a year ahead in 10th grade, but they're under the 11th grade classes because they're at a slower pace. And also because I dropped out of accelerated in 10th grade since that shit was just annoying as hell. There was a lot of work and the teachers weren't too great in terms of accelerateds. So I just dropped out of those. And immediately came into 11th grade classes as a 10th grader. So for accelerated classes I would usually have 10th graders, like some classmates I know, people I genuinely am friends with, or people I've known. For this year, though, since I'm in 11th grade classes, because I'm on the accelerated track, I'm still a year ahead, but I dropped out of accelerated in terms of the pacing. I'm in 11th grade classrooms. Some with 11th graders. Safe to say, I kind of made myself known in those classes as being like one of maybe few, if not the only 10th grader in that class. In those classes. For chemistry, there was like 1 or 2 other 10th graders. But for my Algebra 2 class, I think it was literally just me being the 10th grader in that classroom. There was like mostly 11th graders and then one actual senior, like a 12th grader. I was like the only 10th grader in Algebra 2, my Algebra 2 class. Psychology for me was pretty mixed. 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, which is probably the most diverse class I've ever had. Intro to AI for me. Yes, I'm taking a literal AI course. Early on this year, I took an AI course early on in the school year. That was also full of 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, but not 9th graders. So it's safe to say my classmates in classrooms will be pretty different from my people I do know, because they're still in 10th grade. But either they're not accelerated at all, they didn't start out accelerated in any day at all, they did not go accelerated to begin with, or they remained in accelerated with the other 10th graders. I'm a 10th grader myself, so for me it was a pretty weird experience. I was almost pretty bitter about that the first couple of days of school since I couldn't hang out with my friends as much as I did last year. But I still had time for them, and some of the 11th grade classmates were actually pretty nice, you know? And then, in terms of like school food, it was actually edible at the food this year. I don't say all the other years previous to this one, from 7th grade and onwards, all the food became much more edible. Not to say that my elementary school food was inedible, but that it was way, way less edible, way less choices of good food than I had from the 7th to 12th high school I'm in, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th grades. I don't know why I'm sputtering now of all times. I don't know why. Is my mouth dry or something? Hold up. Anyways, for lunch, they have a lot of varieties of food. And hell, they even decide to pack plastic bags full of some food for anyone that was 10th, 11th, and 12th grade and going outside for lunch. They implemented that in May and then in June. I know I'm sputtering now. Why am I sputtering so much? Anyways, this year was just great, but in terms of food, everything was edible. Everything was well varied, delicious, and hell, I enjoyed getting the greatest tan outside in school. When I was able to go outside for school or lunch in this summer in May and June. And I just sat out for lunch, sitting on the same bench, facing the same, basking with the sun for those 2 months. And I can already note a difference in the skin tone between the parts of my body that were covered with my t-shirt and shorts and the parts that were not. The parts that were facing the open sun. In that case, you and I could both tell. If I were to come up in front of you right now, without any clothing on, obviously with underwear on, you could easily tell that I had a tan in terms of like how long I sat outside for school in the hot ass sun. Because the parts that were covered up by my black shorts and blue t-shirt did not receive as much tanning, if any at all. Meanwhile, the parts that were open did get a lot of tanning. Like, half my arm was noticeably darker than the other half of my arm. Same with the other arm. That other arm's half is noticeably darker than the other half of the other arm. It's crazy. It genuinely is. And that's how I know what a tan is now, since I not only heard about it in people's stories, but I actually got one myself, technically. I didn't go out of my way to get a tan. I went out of my way to go out for lunch. And I was mostly the person who wore the same black shorts every single day throughout 10th grade and 9th grade. Those pair of shorts are pretty good, really good. I scratched like the bottom part where I sat on by sitting on a rock surface one day in gym in 9th grade, so I just had to take care of them. And unknowingly, I just took such good care of those pair of shorts that I'm still wearing them to this very day, to this very year. Crazy. People know me as the kind of person that does that, wears either this pink shirt that says I have a theme song, or a blue shirt with probably a dinosaur comic on it. Not a dinosaur comic, a baseball player comic on it. And then a black Nike beanie. I had that on even in the fucking summer. Yes, the fit was absolutely essential. I needed to have the fit on par on any day of the week. My black shorts, light shirt, pink or blue, and then dark pink, I should say, and then black Nike beanie sitting in the sunlight. Yes, I had to do that every single day. It was absolutely essential. The fit was clean, and everything about it was clean. Overall, that's it.